as the Democratic National Convention gets ready to get into swing tomorrow down in Charlotte, North Carolina. With us a guy who is going to be covering that throughout the week with his thoughts and his insights, a guy we respect a great deal, Joe Sestak, former admiral, congressman, present political commentator, and I'm very proud to say a friend. And he's with us here on York's Morning News. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Hi, Gary. You said everything except my favorite title, Dad.
I forgot. And your daughter would say that with a capital D-A-D, right?
Joe? Yeah, but she just turned 11. She's starting to say, well, Dad, I got to go to my friends before I talk to you today.
Oh, you're getting to that period. You get to that period of time where they say, I couldn't believe how dumb my dad was at 14 to 21. I couldn't believe how much he learned in 7 years, So, yeah, enjoy that time. Believe me, I'm going through it, and it's an interesting time. Joe, I want to ask you just very quickly maybe what you thought last week of the Republicans and how they operated last week might somewhat determine a little bit how the Democrats might operate this week, if at all. Just your thoughts on that briefly.
Yes, I think the Republican National Convention was well conducted. I think they achieved what they wanted to do. I think Governor Romney came out showing that, he really does have a human side. He is a charitable human being. He does actually care and is a man of great faith. I think they laid out their view, particularly under Paul Ryan, in a way that was sharp and contrasting with what he tried to portray the Democrats as. Now, I think, some of the fact checkers on that said, well, wait a minute, Paul, you were a little bit disingenuous there. But I think they laid out their platform of what they want to achieve, particularly in the workman-like proposal and speech by Governor Romney. He didn't spike it in the end zone, but that's not his style. He got it in the end zone, and he always has. During a tough primary, he's always come through. I think he did it again. Yeah,
you mentioned on the fact check. It turned out that Ryan was correct about the factory in Janesville. He was, the air of omission on the fact that he also voted against the Simpson-Bowles Act for different reasons, maybe, but the fact was he voted against that, and he blamed the president for not implementing that. And, of course, again, in full disclosure, I think that would be a good thing for him to do. I think that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah, I think that Paul Ryan, I knew him in Congress. I like Paul Ryan. He really is a good family man, but he was, as you know, that plant that he spoke about that he alluded that President Obama had closed a month prior to the president.
Actually, no, they did a fact check on it. It closed 14 months afterward. It actually came in and closed during that time. So on a fact check, I just double-checked it the other day, and it came out that it closed later, not earlier. So upon further review, because I was one that said immediately, well, that's not the case. But in looking at some other fact checks there, they said, it closed a little bit later on. So, whatever.
Well, that's interesting. We probably need fact checkers on the fact checkers.
Fact checkers on the fact checkers now. You got it. Let's look at what do the Democrats have to do this week in terms of making their case? The Republicans said, well, we want to get to know Mitt Romney a little bit better. Maybe that happened. We want to lay out where we are. I thought the fact that they didn't really badmouth the president at all, but were kind of this idea of resignation, that we like the guy, but, he didn't get it done. They continue to go back to the idea. He said if he didn't have it done in 3 years, that there'd be a new president. So now the Democrats, it goes to their court. What must they do, in your opinion, here? We've got about a minute left in this segment, but we'll continue in the next one.
I think that what the Democrats need to do is differentiate why their platform is different than the Republicans and better for America. Look, they need to recognize what the Republicans laid out well, that we want to be protected in our individual opportunity from a government that can fetter and can burden individual opportunity. But they have to also say what else Americans share in their values, and that is freedom of opportunity. And government actually can help that. It did it under President Lincoln when we had Land University established. It did it under President Eisenhower when we established the roads. It did it under President Truman when we got the GI Bill, and under President Bush and Obama with the GI Bill and its enhancement. How can government help us on international trade? And I think those two shared values, protecting our individual opportunity from government like our founders wanted us to have protection from government, but understanding done well, and it isn't done well always, that it can help us. That is government in freedom of opportunity. Those are the twin pillars of our shared values of America, and how he lays that out, I think, is going to be critical to this election.
And again, coming in a period of time where government is really suspect. I mean, we look at every number out there, and there's no fact checkers have to worry about that one. Everybody suspects government right now, and the question is, what's government's role in our lives, I think, is one of the things that you're kind of pointing to. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about one of the things that the president has to stand up for, the numbers, which Romney did not, and talk a little bit about some of those numbers and what the president president can do about those in this convention. Joe Sestak, our very special guest this morning, and will be every day here during the course of the convention on York's Morning News. Back with Joe Sestak, former admiral, former congressman, political commentator, good friend, and dad, with us here this morning on York's Morning News. Did not forget, obviously when a president goes into his political convention, it's a little bit different. People are saying, are we better off than we were 4 years ago, Joe, as you well know, and over history. And when we look at this president and we look at, obviously, some of the things that he's going to be tested on this week, gas prices are about double of what they were when he came in. You got people earning about $4,000 less in terms of their personal wealth. You got a $5 trillion debt, more debt run up over the last 3.5 years. You got 23 million people unemployed. You got an 8.2% unemployment rate, just to name a few things that the president has got to deal with this week. So how does the president go out and make the message that we're better off now than we were 4 years ago? I heard David Plouffe yesterday and also David Axelrod say we have clearly improved. And I would just offer at least the fact that, maybe we've improved and some of us are missing it, but have we clearly improved? Your thoughts about that going into the convention?
Yeah, look, if you're captain of the ship, and, I always go back to my naval career, you should be held accountable by the crew.
Right.
I also happen, as a former captain of ship, to look in my wake. I know that this president, and inherited 3 wars when he took over, 2 overseas, Iraq and Afghanistan, and 1 here at home, which was the economy. 3 million people had already lost their job, and another 3 million then lost their jobs. I mean, it was pretty tough going. Now, that doesn't mean he shouldn't be held accountable, because I do think that there were things in this administration, particularly with small businesses, particularly with the real estate industry, which has led United States recessions out of their recessionary mode. In every single recession we've had, except this one, things could have been done better. But I'm kind of a guy that says, he's got to take it on the chin and look him in the eye and said, if we hadn't caulked the holes, you may not have liked how we did it. We had been torpedoed. We would have sunk much more than we had. And I think the president has to say, now here's what I'm going to do. Here's the benchmarks of my plan in detail, which hasn't been provided by either side, and hold me accountable to trying to accomplish that. I think he needs to own up that things could have been done better. But if he hadn't done it, the minimum of what he had, it would have been a heck of a lot worse. It's not a real compelling case, but frankly, I think it's the fact.
Well, you look at that, though, and this president said, okay, if I haven't, have the unemployment rate by, 3 years from now, then I'm going to be a one-term president. You don't hear him recall that statement much anymore. And I guess the other thing that bothers me, I hold George Bush responsible for a number of things coming into this that he didn't do correctly on the whole economy. Yet at the same time, George Bush is not running this term. It's Barack Obama. And someone's going to say, hey, at what point in time do you become responsible? And what did you do markedly differently from that president coming in that he, was doing that nobody liked? And yet at the same time, you did stimulus. And we look back at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. What changes have we made to that systemically? None. And a lot of people are saying there's a lot of politics that are involved here, even on the Obamacare, where there are a lot of, people who were kind of left off the hook on that. So, politics is going to be one of the things that's kind of a pall, I think, over the president's case as he tries to make it this week.
It's interesting. You bring up a great point. You can't keep looking at your wake. But I do look at what President Bush did do, which was positive. He voted, as you know, when he was president and gave us in Congress an economic stimulus bill. And that was about $100 billion. It wasn't $800 billion that we had to vote on in the springtime because the economy was starting to dip. He then issued the TARP bill for Wall Street that Paul Ryan actually voted for. So to some degrees, this president took over and shouldn't be always looking at his wake. But he did do things that were not dissimilar.
And we'll have to hold at that point, Joe.
A bigger economic bill.
Yeah, we'll have to hold
auto industry.
We'll have to hold at that point today. You and I are going to have 4 great days of doing this. So we won't empty all of our tanks here just yet today. But thank you so much. I'm looking forward to getting together with you again tomorrow morning.
Always a pleasure.
And we'll check out the first day tomorrow. Thank you so much. Joe Sestak with us on York's Morning News.